Hello everyone, my name is Nick and welcome to today's video where I'm going to try something new, matching what I'm wearing to the background. That's bad. No, I am going to be redesigning a movie poster. So the film poster I'm going to be redesigning is Titanic. Might as well go big or go home. Quick disclaimer, this isn't me saying that their poster is really bad and that I'm gonna do something so much better. The reason I chose this poster was because I feel like there's another direction that I would have taken it to what it originally was. And a little fun idea I had was to redesign it in the style of a sort of retro 60s, 50s style movie poster. The first thing I'm going to do is look at the poster and determine what I like and what the sort of things are that I would change when I redesign it. Let's look at that. So first of all, from what I can see, the boat takes up the majority of the poster. Obviously, that's fair enough because it is about the Titanic, but I think the word Titanic has so much kind of meaning to it already, and it's so famous that when you say it, you immediately know it's a boat. So I don't think it needs to be quite as prominent on my design. As for the portraits at the top of Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio, I don't know, to me, they give me the slightly wrong vibes. I'm gonna get hate for this. That's not what I mean. Like, they're very romantic, but it doesn't quite capture the struggles that the two protagonists face, like, in the film. It's almost too romantic for the doomed relationship that it is. Overall, it's a successful poster, but I feel like it doesn't quite strike the genre for me. It's a disaster romance film. I don't think there's much disaster in the poster. However, I'm sure this was a deliberate choice by the designer, but I think I want to up this sort of emotion and drama a bit in my one. So those are the things that I am going to work on for my poster. So I've literally just done a few thumbnail sketches in my notebook just to plan out some of the elements that I want to include and the composition, and I eventually decided on this idea that I want to take forward. So I then took that thumbnail design and drew it out on an 11 by 17 sheet of cardboard. For the composition, the design is roughly split into thirds, so I then left a blank space at the bottom for the billings and title to be added in later. So now it was time to start my painting. I'm using acrylic paints for this. In my design, I decided that I wanted to use real shots from the film. I wanted to do this because James Cameron used such great emotion in his scenes already that I wanted to harness some of that and bring it into the poster. Rather than the very romantic portrait of Jack and Rose in the original poster, I chose to portray them in the scene where they're escaping the E-deck, where there is a great sense of panic but they're so dependent on each other that their bond is really strong. Like I said before, I was really inspired by sort of retro movie posters, particularly when painting the faces. In those posters they use sort of very much warm tones, so yellows, oranges, reds, browns. This gives it a slightly more sort of illustrated and vintage look. Although I didn't want to go too far on the illustrated direction, I did want to incorporate some of that to give a vintage feel to my poster, which actually fits the film quite well because it is a period piece. I also just really like the wet hair over their eyes to kind of add a bit more intrigue and drama. As for other parts of the poster, there are some scenes that are known for their absolutely kind of heartbreaking moments. And so I wanted to choose a couple of these to feature on the poster. Firstly, Wallace Hartley, who was the band leader who led the band playing whilst the Titanic was sinking.
Gentlemen, it has been a privilege playing with you tonight.
That line from the film has become so famous, and it really shows that he was such a hero and such a noble man. The other shot I wanted to use was the elderly couple lying in bed and holding hands whilst the room was filling with water. This other heartbreaking shot is based off of the lives of Ida and Isidore Strauss. I wanted to include these two shots on the poster, not only because they add emotion to it, it serves as a reminder that the film is based on real life and there were real people who experienced this. They need to be remembered, and therefore I wanted to highlight some of these on the poster. For me, narrative is really important when I was planning out this poster. I actually have a video on my finding narrative method, so I'll leave a link to that in the card above and the description below if you want to check that out for a bit of help to be able to create some kind of more emotion and meaning behind your artwork. I also wanted to incorporate a clock into my design, so I chose the one from the grand staircase in the film, as the movie uses time throughout the film as a motif to kind of allude to that impending doom of the Titanic sinking, which obviously it took 2 hours and 40 minutes for the boat to sink. So I wanted to include a clock to kind of allude to that kind of ticking clock aspect of the film. I thought it'd be cool to have the water filling up the poster. This provides a contrast between the sort of blues and cool tones in the lower half of the poster to the warm tones of the skin of Jack and Rose in the top half of the poster, which ultimately brings your attention towards Jack and Rose at the top because of the colour contrast. After all, they are the protagonists of the film, so attention needs to be drawn to them on the poster for billing purposes as well as story purposes. I did want to include the boat on my design, so I decided, like the original, to incorporate the bow of the boat. However, I decided to do mine as its shipwrecked version, almost as if it were current day. I wanted to do this because obviously it's not particularly a spoiler that the boat sinks, so therefore I want to keep this realistic and again allude to that sense of impending doom of actually what happens at the end of the film. And by having it shipwrecked, the actual confirmation that again this is a true event and this actually happened. As a further way to highlight Jack and Rose at the top of the design, I put a sunset behind them. Again, a colour contrast to the blues of the rest of the poster, but also a nod to the iconic flying scene with the sunset in the background. So here we are, here is the painted base ready to be edited. Ultimately, I wanted my poster to be a realistic representation of the events and genre of the film. We follow a doomed love story, and so I wanted to up the drama and emotion in my poster to kind of show that. I was considering adding the title and billings by hand, but I think what I want to do is import it into Photoshop so I can get nice crisp text, as well as add some textures over the top to really hammer home that sort of vintage feel. Okay, so I took a photo of the painting and I imported it into Photoshop. And here it is, the raw photo that I took in quite a flat profile to give me options to be able to adjust the colours and contrast, etc. So I'm just going to show you the things I did to get to the finished poster. So I started by adding a brightness and contrast level, adjustment level. Just making it a bit more punchy, upping the brightness, upping the contrast. I then took that a bit further by adding a curves just to deepen up the shadows a bit, where I also used the dodge and burn tool to get rid of some of the cardboard texture in some of the darkest areas of the poster. I then did a very subtle hue and saturation level adjustment where I changed the yellow ever so slightly and I just added a little bit more saturation. What I then did was added in some colour, some more blue tones towards the bits that are underwater in the poster. So I just used a gradient and changed it to soft light and adjusted the opacity to about 50%, just to bring in some more blues to the lower half of the image to up that colour contrast even more. What I then did is I brought in some texture. So I added some sort of dust and scratches into the painting just to give it more of sort of a vintage feel. And then finally, I added in my text. So the fonts that I used for the Titanic title, it's one called Fat Freddy with PHs. Yeah, it gets better. And then for the top billing, so Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, I used a font called Rubber Nipple Factory. I got these off the font, okay? And then for the small print billing, I used a font called Tall, Dark and Handsome. Oh, I wish. And then I just adjusted the colours slightly to have kind of like some yellows to kind of complement the top half of the image again. As well as I added a few filters onto the text. So I used a ripple and a noise filter just to make it a bit more kind of vintage and again fit into that overall feel. So here's a side-by-side comparison of my design and the original poster. Obviously it's slightly difficult because the original one is photography and mine is hand painted, but I really like the urgency and emotion behind my one. giving a sense of the stakes being very high and that we're running out of time. Though if I were to do it again, I would try and bring back some more of the romance from the original poster. I really like the font I used, and I think if I were to do it again, then maybe I'd bring a bit more of the illustrated feel to the rest of the poster. But overall, I'm really pleased with how my version came out. It's very different from the original, but that's good. I don't know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below what you think of my design. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had really good fun making it, and I'd love to do some more of these poster redesigns in the future. So if you have any suggestions for film posters you want me to redesign, then leave them in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, please consider subscribing for weekly art, film and photography videos every Sunday. And hit the like button if you want to see more videos like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week with another video. Bye. I just coughed, hiccuped and burped at the same time. Isn't that really rare? I swear that's really rare. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that the heart must go on. She does do that, doesn't she? She's like, whoa, whoa. She does. Oh, Celine.